Euclid is called the father of geometry because he is thought of as the person who created geometry. In truth, Euclid wrote the 13 books of the Elements, which were about geometry. Geometry had existed before Euclid, so not every part of the books he composed are original. He was the first to gather and clearly write about the basics of doing geometry. Euclid's books on geometry were the first to clearly state the definitions and theorems of geometry. Through his instructions, the world was introduced to geometry and able to accomplish many endeavors. The Greeks, including Euclid, were the first to examine point, line, and plane. Previous to the Greeks, cultures such as the Egyptians and Babylonians used geometry, but they never questioned relations to the numbers that they were using like the Greeks did. Their society based geometry on a trial and error system. They never really tried to understand what they were doing. They just made it work for them. He said there was a reason for everything that happened, and through observing, the reason things happen can be discovered. There he discovered many things using numeral patterns. He strongly promoted himself and gained many followers in Italy who were called Pythagoreans. Pythagoras had strongly influenced Euclid and his books. He was a Greek mathematician who is best known for writing the 13 books of the Elements. Euclid may have been a student at Plato, a school in Athens. Euclid, or the father of geometry, is best known for being the author of the 13 books of the Elements. It was in those books that he began to organize and reason geometry. Geometry could be found in many different places and forms prior to Euclid's The Elements. He took all the theorems and geometric definitions and put them together in a series of books, so the information was in one place and others could clearly learn from it. Euclid's geometry design relies on the axiomatic method. Before creating postulates or writing theorems, Euclid wrote the undefined terms point, line, and plane. These terms cannot be defined because they previously ceased to exist and cannot be seen. From the undefined terms, Euclid was able to write 10 simple postulates. A postulate is a rule that is accepted without proof. Also, he included 23 definitions for words such as circle, right angle, and parallel lines. Once he had all the basics written, he could write and record theorems. Theorems are rules that are accepted and can be proven. He never claimed that all the theorems were originally his, nor did he credit anyone. In the Elements, Euclid proved 465 theorems. The Elements consist of 13 books that have lasted over 2,000 years. Many of his writings were based on the works of those before him. Euclid primarily included information from Eudoxius, Theaetetus, and Theodist. The elements began to spread and teach people about geometry. They were translated into multiple languages so others could become educated about geometry. The translations allowed people of different languages to learn about geometry, which opened doors for the scientists who followed Euclid. Euclid's books had a large impact on scientific thinking and paved the way for other great scientists, such as Albert Einstein, Bertrand Russell, and Arthur Eddington. They used Euclid's geometry to help develop their own theories. From carpeting a room to designing a house, the geometry Euclid wrote about is used every day. The simple knowledge of shapes and measuring associated with geometry is constantly being used. Euclid set up the foundations of geometry that have been used to help shape science and the world. Euclid was the first to organize the definitions and theorems of geometry in his books. He laid down the groundwork for others' accomplishments. He gathered information about geometry which, prior to him, wasn't systematized. Euclid may not have invented geometry, but he gathered and recorded all that was known about it, and for that he is known as the father of geometry.